Okay. Yes. We are live.
We are live. Yes, we are live. Hello back, Beena,
Hey.
after absence. And
Yes,
seems like it's
yes,
been ages since you've been here, but it hasn't actually. Yes.
yes. Hello and welcome everyone. Hello, Norma. Hopefully
Yeah,
you'll be there.
yeah.
Hello, anyone who is going to watch it live or later via recording. Hello, Syl. It's been very long. Really, I feel that too. I was feeling like a bit of not a disconnect, but it was like, yes, a bit distant because and it was good. It was giving me time to go through my feelings and just let them simmer. This is what I was trying to do.
Wow.
Sometimes you just need to just let things be without sharing, without doing anything. Just let them be, and later the moreness will come. I just have this trust.
Oh, yeah.
So today I was visiting Lahore Fort, and it's a
Say
big,
that again.
huge.
Lahore Fort. Yeah.
Lahore is the name of the city, and it's a walled city in Pakistan. It has 11 gates, and Lahore is you can say that it's a cultural hub, and it's historical cultural hub also for Pakistan. The city has a completely different vibe than the city I belong to, Karachi. Karachi is a cosmopolitan city,
Mm,
and like any other cosmopolitan city, you can imagine how the life is there.
yeah.
Lahore has its own vibe. It's a very like populated city, but also that there's so much history here, so much culture, and symbols of cultural bloom you can see and you can connect with them. Yesterday, I visited just one of the parks and I saw a tree which was like 130 years old, and the name of that tree was Buddha. It's not about how the tree, how much it was old or how big it was. Just it was very inviting for me. I just want to just sit there and try to feel what would be the time at that time when that tree was sprouting and someone was planting, and then it sprout and then start
Mm,
growing 130
wonderful.
years ago. 130 years ago, and that tree is still standing tall,
Ooh.
uh, and is still holding the same ground. I don't think so that humans can say that they are still rooting in the same ground. Not everyone, at least.
Mm,
As the time passes, we change, we adapt, we learn, and we grow. Trees do that in a completely different way. Trees also grow and learn. I don't know the learning parts, but of course they adapt through the climate and the changes in the climate and atmosphere. But they hold the same ground because we move, and they hold their roots still from the source, because roots are source for them to get the nourishment. They keep those sources intact, and this is what make them tree. Unlike human, our sources always evolve and change, which is of course which makes us human. Our source of nourishment in terms of psychological, spiritual, intellectual, physical, in every sense, our nourishment sources also change. They change and they evolve as we age and as we grow. But trees are different. They do adapt, they survive, they thrive, but their sources remain intact
Oh,
and
oh.
grounded, which is very interesting for me to observe. When I was coming from Karachi to Lahore, Karachi is it's a hot climate city. Though we have three sides uh, touched by sea, but still it's a very hot climate city. So, and also it's a cosmopolitan city, so we have a different kind of we have a different kind of expression. I call those green trees and greenery as an expression of nature. In Karachi, unfortunately, we have very, very limited nature's expression of creativity, but human. Everything is affected by human. You can see the consequences of humans, and you can see in some way the effects of human population there.
Yeah.
But as I was coming out of Karachi, I was observing the nature is more dominant here.
Oh,
We can,
interesting, Beena.
yes, we can see everywhere. We can see that how nature is expressing itself.
And what was anomalous?
Different type of trees.
Anomalous or just different?
Yeah, it was anomalous in it's a subtle anomaly, I can say that, because though the greens are so beautiful, and I started a poem which is like countless shades of green. It's a cliche thing, but this is exactly what I was observing.
Wow.
In the understanding I had, or the perception I had, that all trees are beautiful, and they are like me. So I was just
Hang on a
assuming
second.
that,
All trees are beautiful and they are like you. I agree.
yes,
How do you
yes,
meet
I
them?
said that. Okay, that's it. Okay, because I was assuming that every tree has just one specific nature, but not, but they share the same thing, the same energy, which was wrong. Every tree has its own characteristics and
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
different
Each tree is
energy.
individual. Yeah.
And I must admit now that not every tree was as nice and gentle as was assuming. That, oh,
Wow.
every tree is going to be like,
Yes.
okay, because they are trees, so I just love them. They're so beautiful. They blah, blah, blah. I love
No.
them, of course, because it was natural.
So
And
you're
it is
saying trees are like babies.
exactly,
Not all are brilliant and beautiful and wonderful and
exactly,
lovely.
exactly. And I could
No.
see that the stance they were having. Every tree had a completely different stance.
Wow, Beena. Wow. When was this? When you were on the train?
Yes, yes. So,
Wow.
like, of course, I cannot count how
Yeah.
many trees are just passing through my eyes, and I was just, because you can imagine you are coming like for 17 hours travel from a train. So how many trees would be? Because everywhere there were trees and
Wow.
trees, trees and fields and trees and trees, and and I was just watching them for 17 hours. And
Yeah.
those 17 hours were giving me a completely different understanding of things. We assume, it is my perception, of course, not necessarily for other people. For me, it was like the trees are the most gentle, beautiful thing, and beautiful expression of nature.
Yeah.
It is beautiful in its own way, but it doesn't make them all nice. Nice.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I okay. Uh, Again, it's a very personal understanding. I can feel
Yeah.
the ego stance from trees. I can feel the
Interesting.
naughtiness.
Wow. I never heard
I could
anybody
feel the
say that before.
naughtiness. I could feel that some were like really mean, and they were up to something mischief,
Yeah.
and some are like really very grand, and they have that sobriety, and some are loving, they have that joyfulness.
Yeah.
So many things I was observing just through those passing trees. That's why I was saying that, okay, so the poem I'm writing is not going to be the usual, oh, someone just falling in love with trees again and
Brilliant.
just admiring them. I'm going to admire them because I do accept them. This is who they
Yeah.
are for me. This is who they
Wonderful.
are. So it's not like I'm
Wonderful.
trying to change, or I'm disappointed. No,
Yeah.
just it's like pure awareness. That's why this is wild. When you understand the wild,
Yeah.
then we understand the more in depth of this. The process of growth and nature, it's not very nice and angelic and like, oh yeah, it's all pretty and beautiful. No, it's a struggle. It's a struggle of the toughest and the survival of the toughest there. And when you see trees and try to perceive their energy, you see more than obvious. This
Yeah.
is what I been observing
Wow.
throughout my journey. And again, yesterday I saw a 130-year-old tree. So, and that
Wow.
tree was
Wow.
inviting me. So just
Yeah.
sit and try to see that, okay, what I
Yeah.
have been observing.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was an observer,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or she was an observer.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pause you 1 second there. Jessica says,
Yes.
"Good day," says Jessica. Yes.
Yes.
Good day,
Hello, Jessica.
Jessica. Hello. 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 And then she further says, some trees share roots that interconnect with each other to assist on keeping each other alive. Yes, this is in the story that we're reading, Jessica, in the previous chapter, and that it features very predominantly in the Songs and Hearts chapters. Thatness, you
Yes.
you have to read the story; it's a bit too long to explain. But yeah, it comes because it's a story about the giant trees, and anyway, it's a fantastic story. It's very different to this chapter, but yes, that's a very powerful thing, and not many people know about that. So very
Hmm.
cool. It's there. It's there. But anyway, carry on, Beena. I mean, I'm ready, but you share what you the whole point, So just wanted to
Yes.
say
Okay.
hello to Jessica.
Uh,
Where's Norma?
it, oh, yes, please. Yes. So I saw a tree which has like long branches and very long, very tall tree. And one of the branch, the big branch, was making a 90-degree angle and passing through minimum 6 trees on its left and going straight and straight and straight and
Wow.
straight. Then on the seventh tree, it just turned and become a part of that seventh tree. That was very unusual for me to see that. It was very energy efficient,
Describe it
not going
again,
here
please,
and there,
Beena.
moving. I said, okay, I saw a tree which was one of its branches, very big branch, was making a 90-degree angle and going through its left and straight. It was very unusual to see that it was going straight and passed through 6 trees and then
Wow.
to the seventh. Yes, and then the seventh tree, it just blend with the seventh tree.
Wow, Beena. But think about this in the context of the Songs and Hearts story.
Hmm.
There were these giant
Hmm.
trees. Okay, this might not have been a giant tree, but one of the features, remember the story starts with them on this branch, and this one of the branches that connects to the other trees, right? And then from there it connects
Yes.
again. Yeah. So wow,
Yeah.
that's that and 90 degrees. That's really unusual.
Yes. Because
Wow.
it was like a very energy efficient and very aware tree, because it
Yeah.
was not going through any nonsense, okay, moving here and there and then going back to this. No,
But it was
very straight,
connecting.
very
Wow. Oh, sorry, carry on. I was
yes,
just saying it was connecting. Yeah, yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
but it was connecting, but it is like, okay, you know that, okay, where you have to go when you are going like with a very clear target and goal. You
Yeah.
know your destination very clearly.
That
Then you
intent,
don't
in
move
other
here and
words.
there randomly. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So he
fantastic. Yeah.
that tree was not bothered with or not interested
Yeah,
to blend with all the 6 trees in between. That's why it
yeah,
was a 90-degree straight
yeah.
branch.
That's incredible. That's incredible. All right, let's read. Let's read. Yes.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that's really anything else? That's anomalous, Beena.
No, I'm going to read, of course. I'm going to share more and more as they will come. So
All right.
please.
That's amazing. That really is something. And what were you thinking about at the time? Since we are talking about anomalies, right? This is very important to understand. About anomalies. That anomalies, it's not just, okay, that's unusual. What makes it an anomaly is typically how it is pertinent and relevant in some way to what was going on inside you at that time, right? Now, when I say going on inside you, that doesn't necessarily mean you were specifically thinking about it in that moment, but like an ongoing thing, like you're trying to resolve something, you're trying to figure out something, you're trying to get direction on something, trying to understand something. See, You might not be doing it that second, right? But at that time, yeah. And so was there anything that
I ha-
that
I had a very clear intent when I was like, okay, I started this journey, this
uh-huh.
traveling things. So I'm going to share it later, that
Ah,
how it connects with
well,
that.
you did say,
Yes,
and from at least for me, I see a connection right there.
yes,
In that
mm-hmm.
the start of your journey, you took that anomaly of the beginning, because anomalies is what this chapter is about, right? And the next one
Yes,
also, it's Boynal and anomalies, and the next one is called the anomaly of Boynal. Right? So it's absolutely all about anomalies, and therefore also about attunement and alignment, because those three go together, right? And of course, awareness of alignment and intent is very key to anomalies also. It all connects together. So you can say you've got attunement, alignment, and anomalies, and in the inside of that triangle is intent, right? Binds it all together, right? Now, if you take what you said from the anomalies of getting to the station with the Ubers being so weird, and not having the the compartments, you're sitting in the chairs, all that. You said that
yes,
this you at least already in the car, you connected this with the discomfort of getting out of, or the friction or the resistance of getting outside of our comfort zones, right?
exactly. Yes,
Now that tree seemed to be doing something very different to extend itself past its usual. Yeah.
yes,
Wow.
yes,
Now again, see, it's not
yes,
it's not a repeat of you getting out of your comfort zone, but the question becomes, when you now, okay, you've resolved to be comfortable getting out of your comfort zone, but now what? Yeah. And the tree is telling you, do something that's very different. Take a 90-degree turn, go against your nature, as it were. Branches don't naturally grow that way, right? And then do something completely
yes,
radical and different, which is connect in a kind of a 90-degree lateral way. You know what I mean? But in other words,
yes,
be purposeful, because you were telling me that tree, it was very clearly purposeful and deliberate, at least in
yes,
in appearance.
yes,
What a fantastic anomaly,
yes,
right?
yes,
That's something.
yes,
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm
yes.
I'm thrilled that you're here, Jessica. This is very cool. All right, so we're continuing to do the capital R reading, and the first part was, oh, we right here still at the very beginning. We didn't read very much. I thought we'd gone further than that. Uh, oh, I guess not. All right, well, now I'll just start the whole chapter again. Uh, okay, Boynal and the Anomalies. As long as we are inside our self-created
You are not
flawed.
sharing screen, Syl.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we'll have to start it all over again once more. Chapter 16, Boynal and the Anomalies. As long as we are inside our self-created flawed legacy system, we have to reach outside the system for something to base our trust on. This is how we come to use the universe as a source of trust. This is why anomalies are anomalous, because they do not belong to that system. They are from outside, from the crafting of Kaljun. That's a very cool quote that sets the tone here, right? That we cannot rely on that which is usual and familiar, because it's a flawed and self-created legacy system. That's actually a very deep little point there, but I went into it yesterday in depth, right? That we make our own world, but because we're ignorant and we're not fully aware, we make a flawed system. And also the legacy system that is based on the superiority paradigm, that comes from way back in the day when we were fighting over resources, right? We don't need that competitive system anymore. And even then, it was a flawed system, right? Like I've explained many times about the lions compared to the African wild dogs. The African wild dogs, they collaborate and cooperate and they work as a
Yes,
team. Whereas the
yes,
lions, yes, they work sort of together when they're hunting, but once they have finished, then they fight each other for the spoils. It's like stupid, man. It's like so primitive. It's so pathetic. Just all status and ego rubbish. But anyway, so the point is that also, yeah. right? This is to use the universe as a source of trust because we don't have any other trust. But anomalies are anomalous because they do not belong to that system. They are from outside. And when you realize these are communications from outside yourself, right? There are many types of anomalies. It comes up in the next chapter, all the different ones. But it's very powerful, right? So when we realize that, we've now got a whole different system, a different language, a different way of relating, a different thing we can use in our lives, a different source of trust and moreness. Very powerful. Biella was thoughtful. The free chat was later, but not on her mind. It would flow as it flowed. No preparing for it, nor would anyone want to. No. What she was thinking about was the inordinate becoming manifest. I love that, right? And this is in that tree is the inordinate becoming manifest, right? That tree of yours, Beena, the 90-degree branch tree.
Yes.
Did you take a photo of it, by the way?
No,
Oh,
no.
what a pity. But
I
maybe on
was
the
too
way.
consumed. I was
Yeah.
too consumed to just observe it.
Yeah, I know. But still, it's inordinate, right? I've
Yes.
I've never known of a 90-degree branch,
No.
other than something that came about artificially. But this was a freestanding tree, it seemed like, yeah?
Yes.
Nothing
Yes.
that blocked it there and made it go.
No.
And then
No.
continuing through 7 other trees. That's astonishing. Uh,
Yes.
It's really the inordinate becoming manifest, right? So
Yes.
that's really powerful that you shared that story because now we have an actual example. All right, the whole story so far has been about inordinate becoming manifest, but it's not. In a story you could say, yeah, but Syl, you just sucking the stuff out of your thumb here. Well, not everything, right? A lot of this inordinate came was real stuff, right? That came was inordinate. But all right, you can still say, yeah, but here we have an example of it from Beena, right? Beena's story. And it's nothing, it's personal to Beena in the moreness meaning from her intent that she set about so it has meaning for Beena. But it's still for us, it's still inordinate. Might not have any particular meaning to me, yes, but I still see it as inordinate. Right? I have to, right? What she was thinking about was the inordinate becoming manifest. It had become a theme for her, a thread running through everything. She saw it happening everywhere. Biella reviewed the flow of events in her life lately, the abstract pattern of things as it pertained to her. First, what had her intents been? To be a new noble, and everything it entailed was still the same. Her accepting of the full status of the new nobility and the name had not changed anything, just as it did not for any new noble. Right? So this is going back to basics. She's doing a review, and I talked here extensively yesterday, by the way, about the practice of the daily review at the end of the day. Right? Which isn't just a review of, oh, I did this, I did that. No, it's going over it like a movie actor and a director, where you are both actor and director and you are replaying those scenes, but you're doing them differently. You're trying it this way, you're trying it that way. The scenes of the day that you would like to improve, right? It's a very, very powerful technique of doing this. But anyway, I went all through that yesterday. But still, if you're doing a review and you're looking at it from a nice overview point of view, it's very important to know what your intents were because your intents make a difference to how you view things, right? So in your case, Beena, looking through the window, you weren't just looking through the window. You had an ongoing intent that you had set as a result of that anomaly at the beginning of your journey, correct?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
intent was to be comfortable outside of your comfort zone. Yes.
Exactly.
All right. So see now, when we look at that anomaly through the lens of Beena's intent, it changes everything. Yes. Because she set the intent to be comfortable outside of her comfort zone. But how exactly? Yeah. That wasn't she doesn't know necessarily. Yeah, but that tree is very helpful in saying, wow, sometimes you can just go
Yes.
completely 90 degrees to and then do stuff that's even more unusual, right? From there, right? Take that further. See what I mean? When you abstract that, there's an answer to the unspoken question of Venus intent. See how it all works? Make sense?
Yes.
Jessica, are you still with
Yes.
us? Does that make sense? I'm keen to hear this, Jessica, because lots of stuff happens in your life, but we don't often talk about anomalies, and we really do need to more so. What was anomalous, right? Anomalies, not unusual. Yes, anomalies are unusual, but not everything that's unusual is anomalous, right? It depends on the intent and the context, right? All right. So she's saying, changing her becoming a new noble, it not changed anything, and it doesn't do for any new noble, right? It's just there. All right, brilliant, brilliant. Jessica's still with us. Fantastic. Then there was the task with the delegates. She had been asked to show the delegates what the new nobility were. She had not been asked to tell them about the new nobility. No. She had been asked with complete and utter sincere earnestness to show the delegates not only what the new nobility were, but what it was to be a new noble. Biella was not sure why she specifically had been asked to do this. She assumed the universe had led the new nobles on admin duty at the time, who had been liaising with the agglomeration officials to choose her. Didn't matter to Biella. It was what it was. The effect on her, that mattered. Right? So again, doesn't matter why people do things, you just assume in this case, because they live in attunement, that it's coming from attunement. So the effect is what matters, right? Again, see, it's like your anomalies of the Uber drivers, right? And the train compartments, not getting
Oh,
your
yes.
seating and all that. It doesn't matter why it happened. It's the effect that mattered. See? The effect on you was profound. Yeah? It's very important to understand this about anomalies. Doesn't matter why, it's the effect that matters. And actually, oh, thank you, Jessica. Jessica says, I'm intently listening. Yes, and I'm intently listening to your listening as well, always. Right? So this is very important, right? To pay attention to the effect, right? To the intent and therefore the effect. She had absorbed the task completely, becoming the task a profound request to her, still was an enormous task, stated the way it had been. Biella suspected more to the story behind the delegates. She would continue to give it her all, feeling very, very strongly, this was critically important, that she showed thoroughly and totally what the new nobility were about. She remembered the request vividly. The new in new nobility had indeed been emphasized. That too, she realized, had a significance not immediately obvious. Biala came back to her theme, the inordinate made manifest. All her intent, it seemed, had gone into that. To her, the new nobility were exquisitely inordinate. Not only did she have a deep and profound intent to manifest that inordinateness personally, she also wished to manifest the entirety of the new nobility, what it all stood for, what it had accomplished, how it began, how it evolved, where it was heading. Piala realized she had set something in motion with her intent. And for those of you that pay attention from a more writing literary point of view, yeah, pay attention to this paragraph, right? All of her intent had gone into that, right? In this, she also wished to manifest the entirety of the new nobility. Okay, so this is a very deep intent here from Biala, and we're going to see this. I'll just give you a little hint here, right? When I do publish these books, the regular reader will have no clue; they'll only find it out later. But I'm going to let you know that this intent to manifest the entirety of the new nobility, right? She's looking to manifest it personally, right, or to manifest it in some way. What all it stood for, what it had accomplished, begun, all of that, right? She had set something in motion with her intent. This is a foretelling, a foreshadowing, right? So it's later you're going to see how this comes about. And right now, you know, but there is a longer story arc in the whole series where this comes into play, right? It didn't take much sometimes. But also, we have to look at it now in the context of what's coming in this chapter, just in the shorter term, right? This intent, this inordinate made manifest. It didn't take much sometimes. In the momentum, if the momentum was in alignment with the greater flow of things, it could grow quickly. That's a very important point. Yes, if you have an intent and it's not in alignment with the greater flow of things, right? Then you're going to have to spend a lot of energy to get your intent to materialize. However, if it is in alignment, then it's easy, right? It's like the surfer on the waves, right? We've got attunement, they position themselves. If you're not in attunement, it takes a lot of energy to catch that wave. Huge amounts of energy, right? Which, if you're just paddling, you might not be able to do it. If you're being towed by like jet ski or something, which they do, right? You see on especially bigger waves. If you get towed on you can just catch a swell which you wouldn't be able to normally catch with paddling. Once you've caught it and your surfboard starts planing, well, then you can stay on it, right? But still, it takes a lot of energy. I mean, obviously, when you've got a jet ski pulling you, this is incredible energy relative to paddling, right? So it just is a nice example that uh, if you the more in attunement you are, or in alignment with the greater flow of things, this should really be attunement, not alignment. Yeah, I'll change it. Makes better sense. Could grow quickly. Biella saw this with the way the delegates were responding to what she was showing them. Their reaction unusual. She had seen other delegates come and go. Typically, they were more like special tourist parties, being shown a bit more, and that was usually it. Occasionally, a visitor to Nobelia asked to join the new nobility. They were usually young people who had somehow not partaken in the programs and opportunities on their homeworlds for becoming an aspirant. Always, always, in those cases, there was some unusual circumstance involved. All the worlds in the agglomeration were set up in such a way that access to everything connected to the agglomeration was freely available. The new nobility were a unique arrangement, but even so, anyone who knew enough to know what the new nobility were had free access to them, and all the information about their society and what they stood for. Right. So that paragraph there, you could say, yeah, you're kind of jumping. What has this got to do with anything? Well, the what it has to do with it is that, if a visitor could, I mean, typically aspirants come via the system out there in the greater agglomeration. You go, you approach them, and there's, you go through and screenings and all this stuff, right? But you can still, if you skip all that, you somehow come to Nobelia, you can still become an aspirant. It's not closed to you. In other words, this also applies to the delegates, as we know from Ursula, right? So that's why this is, it's just explaining that Ursula is not necessarily an exception. I mean, yes, she is in a way, but not necessarily so. That the greater system makes allowance for the unusual, as any good system needs to, right? But now we start to connect it now to say, well, you know what, maybe there's a bit more going on here because these delegates are completely unlike any other group of delegates before, right? Had these particular delegates been specifically chosen with a potential propensity for involvement with the new nobility? Ah, now that previous chapter makes sense. And remember what I was saying the other day? When you're reading, I call it Shakespeare reading, you have to kind of take it when you get all right, this paragraph wasn't incomprehensible in and of itself. It was just in context, maybe like, why are you jumping here? Ah, the next paragraph tells you why, right? So typically this is common in writing. Just kind of stick with it a little bit, and it will explain itself later, right? Had these particular delegates been specifically chosen with a potential propensity for involvement with the new nobility? Perhaps. Biella was exploring the unusualness of the situation. It went significantly against probability. That always drew the attention, capital A, attention of a new noble. She could not yet say if there was more to it, but she would stay open to the possibility. In the meantime, she would trust her intent, as she always did, staying receptive to whatever happened, capital R receptive. All right, so now we have this whole setup here. We're getting Biella in the early morning, right? And doing Biella new noble things, right? A review, contemplating, looking at the moreness of it, connecting it to intent, looking at the flow, the pattern, right? So she's doing a lot of stuff here, right? Moreness things, right? I mean, she's connecting in a deeper way, but it's an ongoing thing. But it allows her to to get the grip on it and to be with it and be in attunement with it, right? She doesn't know yet where it's going completely, but she would trust her intent as she always did in the meantime and stay receptive, capital R receptivity to whatever happened. Now, I'm going to go into capital R receptivity. I've done this many, many times before, right? And that's just very powerful stuff. The capital R receptivity is very deep there. I don't know maybe how one would find it if you were to look it up, but you could always ask and then I could go into it again. So just then, two unusual things happened simultaneously. She received an incoming message on the com. The com is like the internet, right? Or the computer, the communications device, really, right? So that's just how they call it, the com. I like that, Raw, to me, if you're writing something out of time, I feel it's important that you don't use terminology that's very time specific, right? Like the internet. The internet is not only time, but it's specific to kind of our world. You know what I mean? So if I were to use the internet, you now out of this exotic, foreign, different world, different universe, right? So to me, things like that kind of need to have their own name, right? I don't know. Just some things need to have special names like that. At least it's just me. I don't know if it matters to anybody else or not, but I just feel that's fairly important, right? And of course, you can't have things that are very clearly anachronistic, it's called, right? Out of time, right? This is very important. Anyway, the com system was rarely used by the new nobility. They made the effort to do things in person. Many reasons for this, mainly because of the connectivity it afforded them and the focus. Just a little aside there that explains that it's unusual because the com system is rarely used because they're an oral culture and a culture that connects directly in person, right? And there's a lot of good reasons for this. Again, explained elsewhere in the story. Biella and Illumina, who was visiting, arrived at the door simultaneously. It was the group. What a surprise. Ursula and Hela were there, even Camillus. Now, when she says the group, she's talking about her group of friends, the aspirants, right? Aki, Nora, Carl June, Marco, Hermumt, the collective, and Shaw, and I don't know, I can't even, that's like the group, right? And maybe some more that come and go. Like Fine Noble, also typically part of that group. All right. Anyway, so it was a surprise. Ursula and Hela were there, even Camillus. This was unusual indeed. For them to be there so early is what was unusual. Well, and all together as well, right? Because Ursula and Hela and Camillus are delegates, right? And now they are coming and arriving simultaneously with the aspirants, right? Who is Biella's kind of friends, the bigger group, which is also relatively unusual on Nobelia, as we've explained before. But it's there for the purposes of the story a little bit, right? I mean, it's going to happen, but anyway, this was unusual indeed. Ursula had taken Hela under her wing. Illumina had taken both Ursula and Hela under her wing. And Nora and Aki had done a kind of reverse adoption of Camillus. They teased and played with him unreservedly, completely unaffected by his responses or lack of them. They could be heard calling him uncle or grandpa, and exclamations of, "Oh, don't be such a silly," were often heard, delightful to observe. Camillus, for his part, seemed to be in a wait-and-see mode. He seemed not to know how to deal with the two exuberant and unreserved aspirants. I love how Honora and Aki are interacting with Camillus. I just love this. I think it's really phenomenal, and I can really see it and picture it. Right? It takes a very special type of way of being to do that, and to be completely aware and at the same time oblivious. Right? It's fantastic because they know exactly what they're doing, but at the same time they're so unreserved in it that it is exuberant and unreserved, right? So it's not a manipulation. It's genuine. It's free. It's fluid, but absolutely utterly appropriate for Camillus. It shifts him, right? It's shifting him very much out of his comfort zone, but in a very gentle, very beautiful, very caring way, right? Because obviously they are super caring when it comes to him, and they're enjoying him. They're enjoying interacting with him. He doesn't have to do anything. Right? It doesn't matter what he does. They have fun with it either way, right? And they're completely unaffected by him. It's really cool. We came early. Oh, Herr Mumt, I knew I'd forgotten somebody. I forgot. We came early, Herr Mumt said, in that way of stating the obvious. That was somehow also an explanation. Biella laughed, delighted, as did Illuminia. Biella stepped to the com to check the message, right? Because this happened simultaneously. She can't really leave the door, but she can leave the message on the com because, it's like you're getting a text message. You don't have to respond to it, or an email, right? You don't have to respond to it all the way. Jessica says growth means nothing if one is not willing to be receptive to information. Exactly, exactly. And I would amend that slightly, Jessica, that to be receptive to new and unusual and different information, right? I would qualify that. I mean, I'm assuming that's what you mean, yeah. But I would make it really explicit because then it's a really nice quote, yeah. Uh, Okay, so Biella laughed, delighted, as did Illuminia. Biella stepped to the com to check the message. Yeah, it's a capital C, because that's what they call it. That's the name of it, right? To check the message. Yes, yes, very much so, says Jessica. Cool, cool, cool. She didn't need to, but its simultaneous arrival was too anomalous to ignore. I received an incoming message right as she knocked, she told them. They made the connection. Now, it's anomalous because, yes, in our society and culture, we get tons of texts and messages and all sorts of stuff, right? And this is a personal message. It's like a text that she's getting, right? No, not something that's maybe from the corporation, which would more come like in email form or something like that. And those are very rare and unusual. Why? Because if Biella has something to say to Illumineer, she makes an effort to go to Illumineer to say it in person, right? Uh, and that's it. Like even this arranging of the free chat, or when they did the origin story, right? And the aspirants went and told everybody it's coming. They went in person and did it. And that personal connectivity is just there's no real need for it. But they realize if you start relying on texts, yeah, and emails, you lose that connectivity, right? The personal connectivity. See? So it's part of the culture to do it deliberately, right? Now, there are times when there would be a broadcast to everybody, like if there's some planet-wide thing that everybody, or then yes, then in situations like that, the com would come, and it would have a special blink, that you could set it like, hey, this is a special message that's important for everybody, right? And it would let you know that you don't miss it, right? So it's a very big deal, this, and the fact that somebody did send the com, it's unusual. Now, she makes this invitation to everybody, but few take up on it because there's no real need for it, especially Boynal having been there as a delegate. He had plenty of opportunity to talk to her on Nobelia, but he didn't. Now he's gone back already, right? Anyway, this comes a little bit later. And Biella says, I received an incoming message right as she knocked. Right as you knocked, she told them. They made the connection, right? Because if you see a message come and you hear that knock, the knock is unusual. It's very early in the morning. It's like way before typical visiting time, right? And it's like, wow, how come you guys are here? Now, this comes a little bit here. I mentioned this yesterday. I must have read all this yesterday, I guess. I thought I was on a different place. At any rate, she Biella doesn't ask how come they are there early, right? Because again, it doesn't matter why, it's the effect that matters, right? She just assumes that something anomalous happened. Like some were up early and then they discovered, oh, others are also up early. Oh, all right, well, hey, let's go to Biella then. Let's just go early and surprise her, right? That kind of thing, right? Does it matter how it came about? No, it matters the effect. So the fact that that knock happened exactly at the time that the message came, and the knock is completely anomalous, is really early in the morning. Let's say it's like 5 o'clock in the morning or something, right? It's unusual, and the timing together, it's like just a little alert to say, hey, this message is unusual. Beena, are you saying something, or I don't know what happened there. Okay, I just heard voices, so.
No, it was your video was stuck, so I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh. Somehow I must have clicked on the sound. No, I don't know. What video? Oh, you looking at Facebook and the the thing is on there. Yeah, yeah. You've got to mute it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, I got you. All right. Mute, mute,
Okay.
mute, Beena, mute it, mute it. Turn off the audio on the video. Then you can see the comments, right? Like I have over here. See? See, I've got it muted over there. All right. Anyway, I also have it compressed a bit, but yeah, you have to. She displayed the message. Hi, Biella. May I ask, do you think the loops get quicker and seen easier to let us ask ourselves if we continue in the same cycle of understanding? I seem to have come around in a big cycle, with smaller cycles appearing quickly to me. Wow. Wow. What's your reaction to that message, Beena? Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the message that came right as the knock on the door came,
Yes.
indicating that pay attention, right? Because otherwise she may have just left the message and just continued to interact with the people because,
Yes.
messages you can leave for later, right? So,
Yes.
so what do you think of this message? What do you think of the message, Jessica? I'll read it again. Hi, Biella. May I ask, do you think the loops get quicker and seen easier? Not seem, seen with an N, and seen easier to let us ask ourselves if we continue in the same cycle of understanding. I seem to have come around in a big cycle, with smaller cycles appearing quickly to me. Okay? What do you think of that message? If you had received a message like this, now, all right, when the book is published, the regular reader won't know this, but this is an actual message I received. The only difference was it said "Hi Syl" rather than, because I was sharing the story at the time, right, as I was writing it. Yeah. Uh, or I don't know in what context this came. It may have came not in connection to the story. Yeah, yeah. Look at Jessica, changed her quote there. Exactly. Growth means nothing if one is not willing to be receptive to new and unusual information. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so let's add that to my quote file since it's coming in context here. And we just attribute it to JM. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Jessica Unleashed. All right, so wonderful. Very cool, Jessica. What do you think of that message, Beena?
It seemed like it is coming directly from the universe then.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Thank you. I mean, not just unusual and odd, but that it's coming directly from the universe. I mean, just the way it's
Yes.
phrased is so many.
Yes.
And first of all, may I ask, right? Not can I ask, may I ask, which is proper and appropriate. But of course, you may ask. If you just asked without saying may I ask, the end result is the same. It's completely superfluous, right? You didn't say, may I ask, and then wait for a yes. You're asking anyway, right? So
No,
when hey, yes,
some people are polite like me,
I
like
know,
okay, they
I know,
ask,
I know,
and then
I
they
know.
assume that it is going to be yes, and then okay,
Right,
can I
right,
ask?
right. But I'm saying it's there it's superfluous, but it does indicate a politeness and a
Yes.
considerateness, right? And a caringness. So it's revealing of the personality behind it, right? Then do you think the loops, what loops are you talking about? Biella's never interacted with this person before, and here they are talking about the loops as if she knows what she means, what they mean, right? Biella knows what they mean, right? And we just have to assume here the loops of life when life is looping, right? So a lot of assuming there, right? You have to kind of put it together. It's very anomalous. That's how anomalies are. You have to think
But
about it,
also
put
the
it together. Yeah, Peter?
yeah, but also it's an awareness of that when a farmer knows that okay, oh the ground is fertile, they know that they can just throw a seed, and then of course
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
so it is. It's like very, very subtle trust, which you can see that, okay, the whatever they are saying or whoever is
Yeah,
saying, it is going to be perceived as appropriately as the intent was to
yeah,
share with them. Like they are able to perceive that.
yeah.
So
Brilliant.
for me,
Brilliant.
it's an issue of trust also, like very direct, no
Yeah,
nonsense, no formalities, but just a very subtle politeness. That, okay, may I
yeah,
ask? And then
yeah,
directly listen,
yeah.
because they also aware of the preciousness of the time and energy
Correct.
of the
Correct.
person. Yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very kind of awareness there, but also trust for me. That
Right.
okay, they are
Well, go ahead.
the ground is fertile.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Right. Do you think the loops are Jessica joined us? Hello, Jessica. So I'm assuming you're here to answer my question of what do you think of this message?
Hello, Jessica.
Hello, and yes, I am. Just because
Oh,
it's a
that's
lot
good.
easier than for me right now than texting it. Um, so my thoughts on it is that, I like the way that there's a subtle like niceness with it, but or the politeness of it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, when you think about when you have a whole understanding of so much around you and so many aspects in your life and so many different journeys you've been on, and then you see little understandings in all of that, it just like those little ones kind of create that also that bigger understanding. And in my life it has been anyways,
Well, well.
where I can see all the little things, like little understandings of certain things of like, why is this happening, what is the universe telling me, why did I just get hit in the head really hard by the universe at this point? um and that's because, like, yes, I've had those. I haven't reached those little understandings. So I have to go back through and kind of mentally, as well as writing it down, exactly what all little events led up to this a big smack in the face. And that's it's typically that's my soon going to be past problem. I'm still working on it. Is that I don't listen to the universe enough and I try to do things my way. Um, it's that letting go of that control, that egotistical part of me. It becomes there's sometimes it becomes a little harder than others. This time around when it like, when I've noticed those little messages were little things that were happening at my old workplace. Um, and it got to a point where like I need to go. Like I can't be here. I can't do this. And I just let the universe kind of take its place, and now I have two other jobs in replace of the one I was making or doing, that are way less stressful. So, and that's the way I view it in like how my life goes with that. And what they're saying is, it reminds me of like, yeah, once you reach a bigger understanding, you also start to see little branches of that understanding too, of where you can use it as too, as well.
Most excellent. Most excellent. Most excellent. What do you think, Beena? But what Jessica said.
I need a bit of, you can say that, a bit of
But
context,
more.
because
All
it
right.
is, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's read some more of this, Jessica. Right? Because first he's asking here, do you think the loops get quicker and seen easier? That's a little bit peculiar grammar there, right? So
They
that one
do.
sees the loops easier. To let us ask ourselves if we continue in the same cycle of understanding. Right? So he's asking specifically, he's not just
Yes.
asking, do the loops get quicker and seen easier, but do they get quicker and seen easier to let us ask ourselves if we continue in the same cycle of understanding? Not cycle of living, cycle of life, cycle of circumstance, but cycle of understanding, he says.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's that. Sorry, I do apologize. I hadn't taken my Adderall yet this morning, so I'll be all over the place. But
No worries, no worries, all good.
um, so okay, I'm gonna pause really quick, and I'm gonna kind of gather my first part of my thoughts on that. it's not, for me, it's not in the aspect of living. It's the aspect of understanding
Yeah,
that
yeah,
what I was doing, like within my own workplace, like what was going on, what I was dealing with, there's a lot of things that were going on, and I understood this, but it didn't take as long for me to, like, the constant looping of understanding, like the loops of it. It became faster. I didn't. There wasn't a wait time.
uh,
They went a lot faster. Normally, it would have
yeah,
taken me
yeah,
years, with a constant loop of understanding, or constant loop of things if I asked myself, in the same understanding. However, it didn't take me as long this time. With the constant, it was a lot faster even with me asking myself, what is my understanding of this?
yeah.
Um, it's not in the concept of life. It's a concept, and this is how I'm relating it to is, how things in my life have gone. It's taken me less time. Because it's gone faster. The loop has gone faster.
So you
And
would
so
say
it's
yes to
really,
Boynal's question from you personally.
yeah, I would say yes. It would be a personal
Oh,
yes. And that was
oh,
just because it's taken me less time. Whereas
right,
before it
right.
would have taken me a whole lot longer time.
Yes, and when we have the tools, right, then it makes it a whole lot faster. Then you
Oh
may
yeah.
be just looping, but once you've got tools to actually deal with that, then it starts to become a spiral, right? It changes from a loop to a
Yes.
spiral, and that's very, very important to understand. Very
It's
important to understand.
like that marble that, those little circle things, and they have like a marble or a penny or something you can put into it. And just like as it gets closer, it starts to move faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, 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 exactly,
That's kind of like
exactly.
what it reminds me of.
Exactly. So also in the same message, now Boynal, who's this message, or the message just says, doesn't say who it's from just yet, right? They say, they ask if this is what's happening, and then they make a personal comment. I seem to have come around in a big cycle with smaller cycles appearing quickly to me. Well, said Ursula, that certainly is the way to get the day started. I see why we came early, she teased, but she's also half serious, right? That she understands now the anomalousness of them coming early, right? It now suddenly makes sense to her, and this is very important, right? And I think I must I must take that teased and make it observed rather. It's more appropriate, right? Because this is a way anomalies work. If you pay attention, you're going to see the reason come later, right? Sometimes, okay, it might take years later, but typically you're gonna figure it out and see, right? So she's really paying attention here, and she has been paying attention to anomalies, right? But she's in a fun mode, so it's sort of both together, but I think observed is better. A very interesting question, somewhat oddly asked,
Yes.
Illumina observed, right? So we're putting it all together now, right? We're getting input from the group here, which I find very cool. I love this that they all giving their input. Who's it from? Nora asked. It makes a lot of difference. Nora's very high energy, very excited, right? Excitable. It's from Boynal, one of the delegates who is now back on his planet, Biella said. Tell him that spiral fable you told me the other day. Oh, this is Camelia's. Tell him that spiral fable you told me the other day. Camelia said, surprising everyone. It's slow to talk in Camelia's language. I find it very hard to do, by the way. It takes so long. Anyway, Camelia said, surprising everyone. There needs to be a comma there. All right, so I actually pulled up the spiral fable because it's very pertinent and relevant. Just you can go and look up this, and I put the other ones in brackets here, as a like it's a work, and it's going to be in part of this. So the reason I'm putting it in brackets here, like I did with the other stories, is that somebody can actually go and look it up. It exists, right? And I'm going to show you now here where it is. All right, so here we go, the Spiral Fable. All right. And now Biella says that, yes, great idea, Biella said, pulling up the fable and sending it. So she just sends the whole fable to Boynal. So we don't get to hear the fable, but it becomes a bit obvious in context, right? Um, Biella laughed with joy. I'd like to tell you a story, one of the new nobility founding fables. Camillus was interested. Once upon a time, and that's the other reason why it's not mentioned, because it's earlier in the book, right? So you can go back and read it in the Camillus chapter, chapter 4, I think it is, right? Um, so this is in the story already. Once upon a time, there was a curious circle. No, it was not curious to look at. The circle itself was curious. It was curious about everything. Circle could have been called Jessica or Beena or Syl. It was curious about everything. Especially, it was curious about itself. It wasn't content to go round and round in the same place like all the other circles. Biella's gaze fell upon the river. The circle decided it would get to know itself as well as it possibly could. So the circle started eating itself. Round it went, eating and absorbing all of itself. And it was glorious. She followed its course with a faraway look. As Biella, this is they in this context, right? It's her and Camillus talking now. So the story is pulled from that chapter. But when the circle came back to where it had started, there was a problem. The circle was now bigger than it had been before. Because of all the knowledge it had of itself, the circle could now see its old self a little below where it was now. But it could not see all of itself at once. The circle once again started to eat its new self. It wanted to know all of itself at once. With the new knowledge of itself, the circle was now able to move more quickly. So was now able to more quickly know itself. That's what the circle called eating itself. Again, the circle came to the end, and again the circle could see down on itself, as again it had grown bigger and taller. And again the circle decided to know itself. Round it went, coming to the end quicker and quicker. Round and round it went, even quicker and even higher. The more the circle went around, the closer the circle came to knowing itself. Biella's gaze had moved back up to the high river. Round and round and round until the turn was so quick that it was hardly a circle anymore. It had become so tiny it was just a point. And from that point, the circle could now finally see itself. It still kept on knowing itself, but the circles were so tiny now, mere specks, that knowing them became instant. And then the circle realized something very, very important. Biella breathed in the river, letting it fill her spirit. The circle realized it was. I'm back. My Zoom dropped. My Zoom dropped. Can you hear me, Beena, Jessica? Are you guys here? Yep. Jessica, say again. I didn't hear you. Or Beena, say again. I didn't hear you. You muted, Beena. Beena, you muted. I saw you unmute and then mute again. So I don't know if you can hear me or not. And I'm not sure where I dropped off. I want to finish reading the story. Test. Right, I'm back again. I hope you're filling in for me while I'm dropped, Beena.
No, actually, I was connecting with the server's wife, so I'm just
Oh,
leaving them.
okay. All right. Well, sorry about the dead time there, people.
Yes,
Sorry. All right. I'm glad you're doing that. Where did I stop reading the story, the Spiral Fable? Where did it drop? Do you remember?
It's just a minute or so, so it's not much. So
Okay. All right. So I'll just read up a little bit. Round and round and round until the turn was so quick that it was hardly a circle anymore. It had become so tiny it was just a point. And from that point, the circle could now finally see itself. It still kept on knowing itself, but the circles were so tiny now, mere specks, that knowing them was instant. And then the circle realized something very, very important. The circle realized it was no longer a circle. It had become something else. By feeding on itself in that ever continuous loop, it had become a spiral, and spirals continue on forever. From Pursuing Ideals, the Biella series, chapter 8. Right? So this is it's chapter 8, not chapter 4. I thought chapter 8. Wow, okay. However, now we have an additional commentary, right, from this chapter. Right. All right. So I'm going to leave that because it's going to come in the story. I think Jessica, are you still here, Jessica? Yeah. Oh, Beena dropped. Okay. All right. I
Yeah,
thought maybe you
I'm
dropped.
still
All right.
here.
So
You're just not screen
this,
sharing, so
yeah, just to share now, right? This fable story is answering Boynal's question, right? Of do they become quicker? Yes, and they do. They become quicker, and they are certainly seen easier, right? I mean, it's like his question, this spiral fable, which was written before his question, long before, right? It absolutely answers this question very precisely. When we are on that spiral, we get to see ourselves, know ourselves quicker and quicker, and we go over the same stuff over and over. But there's progress, right, Jessica? As you know, right? I think this very much applies to you. Yes, that you go over
Yes.
the same stuff, but every time it's a little different, right? And it's a little easier. You can connect, you click, you understand, you see a bit easier, right? But you still go over the same stuff, right? But
yep.
better and better, and you get to know yourself more. And of course, when that spiral gets to be very tight, the issues aren't the issue, right? It's you and knowing yourself. And the more you know yourself, the more it now becomes finer little tweaks, finer little tweaks. When eventually it's just exquisiteness that's added, right? Hence the Moreness project being so focused on exquisiteness, right? It's very cool, very cool. All right. So, yes, tell him that spiral fable you told me the other day, Camellia said, surprising. Yes, yes, good one. See, a key added. Yes, great idea. Biella said, pulling up the fable and sending it. Hayla said, I have a feeling he's destabilized. Being here has that effect. And that's a very astute comment, right? The way that comment is written is destabilized. But Haler, who's also a delegate, also from another world, very similar to Boynal's world, she's saying that he might be destabilized because he was here. I would agree, Ursula added, also from another world, right? She understood, both agreeing on this effect. He's not a diplomat, a citizen. I did a little research. There were a few anomalies, Ursula smiled. Seems this delegation has differences with the usual delegations that have come before. I don't know why, though. I was contemplating the same just before you came, Biella said. I don't know why either, but I'm certainly glad for the difference. Boynal's next message. Now he asks again here, right? And this is fascinating to me. Yes. Now, Jessica, keep this in mind, right? That this were actual messages I received. I don't know if they messaged me directly via message at the time, or if these were in a comment chain, right? I don't remember, but either way, right? So this is a real conversation between me and Boynal, yeah? And I find this just fascinating, just out of the blue. I don't know him from Adam, right? Boynal's next message. Let me ask. I want to sell my things today, and it seemed this caused a cycle. My soul seemed to be saying to give them away freely, yet I feel I am keeping myself trapped in this area. Yet I also need money for the move, for to move. That's how it came. Not for the move, for to move. Right? And normally I would clean this up, right? But I left it here very specifically because it adds to the mystery of the story. And you'll see later on, right? But this feeling of needing money seems to be keeping me stuck here. Boynal's particular mode of expression raised some eyebrows. Normally, the com would automatically fix simple errors, right? So normally, because they have sophisticated technology, it would auto correct the mistakes, and it would automatically have said the instead of to. right? For the move, not for to move. But it didn't, which is really unusual. It's really different, right? It's kind of a bit odd, right? Interesting. Biella's comment was joined by a few more interestings. I am not aware of any worlds in the ag where money is still an issue. Not counting yours, Ursula, since they haven't joined yet, or on yours, Camelius. They are in the process already of converting and merging the economy, but it's not all 100% yet, so maybe somebody there. I'm fairly sure he wasn't from either of your worlds. I don't recognize his world's name, Theodral. Information on it is minimal, which in itself is unusual. There are worlds which are restricted. They are all, however, non-humanoid worlds. Right? So is Boynal potentially a non-humanoid, looking like a humanoid? It's possible, but anyway. Then comes another message. I seem to be in a loop. I'm at the point of saying frack it and giving all away and going with the flow. Yet this prospect is frightening to say the least. I actually want to spell this frack with two Ks. Just to make it a little different, right? I mean, I've seen it used elsewhere as a substitute, but I want to make it a little bit more different. Yeah. Yet this prospect is frightening to say the least. I don't know if this is running away or actually truly listening to what is going on within. Biella let the messages run to see where it was going, to find a connection or resonance, but no more came. Right? Again, we're looking at Biella's technique here, right? She doesn't quite know yet where's the connection, where's the resonance, other than internally as to what Boynal is saying. But she wants to connect it to a moreness, a deeperness, a greaterness, because when you do that, now you're in attunement and you can give perspective and share from a moreness point of view, not just internally relative to the message. Because so far, relative to the message, right? It's pretty self-explanatory, is it not, Jessica? Boynal's message. He seems to already have the answer, yeah?
Yes, it is very self-explanatory, and he does already have the answer. I just don't think at
Uh,
this point he really truly knows that he has the answer, understands that
exactly.
he has the answer.
Exactly. He has it, but he's not aware that he has it, or he doesn't have the confidence in his own having of it. And that is
Yes.
that's why I put this in as a chapter. Obviously I get different messages and connections all the time, but it came anomalously. And so in the point in the story, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And I used it, right? So it's really cool how the magic of writing also worked, right? That actually I get this kind of message from somebody that I don't know. And I can so easily fold it into the story, right? Because like you say, it's odd that he has it, but he doesn't have it. But it illustrates so much, and it gives us an opportunity to see Biella and the group in action. And this is the intent of the entire series, the book, the series, everything. It is to show the A plus philosophy, to show, to demonstrate, to see it in action, the philosophy of appropriateness, right? And all the other things, way of impeccability, philosophy of opposite, takeaways, everything, right? You're seeing it in action here, right? And this allows for this, right? And you're seeing that, right? So it's very cool. But Biella set voice to text on. That should be like this. Set voice to text on and said to Boynal in the group. However, at some point the spiral begins to get close enough to a point. Then the circle is virtually instantaneous. At that point, the self-awareness becomes self-sustaining. The pursuit and attainment of that point is not only a worthwhile challenge, but an attainable one. Even though the range in which it takes place is infinite, the range from the huge circles of our childhoods and early lives to where the circles become tight enough to become a virtual point is not. Right, so this is a really important point here. I mean, a very profound thing that Biella says. I love this. It's really, really cool. And it's added into this post that I made, the standalone post, right? It adds, that's the quote. right here now, right? This quote here. There we go. It's just what we read now, right? It's just in prose form here, as opposed to this prose poetry form, which I prefer this way it's formatted than the prose style. I don't know if you prefer it or not, Jessica, but I really like it, right? It adds to an understanding. It's easier to understand what Biella says when it's written this way, right? Then yeah, and I'm going to read that again to demonstrate, right? So look at this now. I'm going to read the same thing, yeah, from this, however, yeah, and this is the same, however, yeah, right? However, at some point the spiral begins to get close enough to a point. Then the circle is virtually instantaneous. At that point, the self-awareness becomes self-sustaining. The pursuit and attainment of that point is not only a worthwhile challenge, but an attainable one. Even though the range in which this takes place is infinite, the range from the huge circles of our childhoods and early lives to where the circle becomes tight enough to be a virtual point is not. There needs to be that comma there. Right? I find I get more meaning out of it written this way. What about you, Jessica? What do you feel?
Yeah, I actually do. And
Which one?
I do get more meaning out of it. And I think
In
I'm
this form,
seeing
in
it,
the
I'm
in
resonating
this
with
like
it.
poetry style, I call it prose poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's very much so, I can see it, like visualize it.
yeah,
At the same time, I could
yeah,
also, it hits home. I can resonate with it.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Right.
definitely I
So,
could.
oh, cool, cool, cool. That's very cool to hear that you prefer this too. I love that. Sorry, I just had a thought there that's pressing on me a bit. Right, this point that Biella makes here is a very deep and profound point and the Spiral Fable point, but her add-on commentary, right? So if we look at well, before if we look at this point she's making about the spiral from where it's big loops to where it becomes very tight, right? At that tight point of the spiral up there where you basically can see it pretty close to instantaneous see yourself, right? From there the spiral keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, and it'll go on into infinity. Yes, but that that's that space in actuality, right? If you had a literal spiral like this, yeah, it will have a certain height to it, and even though it's growing, right, it will grow so slowly as to at some point be unnoticeable, right? It will grow like one fraction, one atom a century or something, right? Because it's just so tight, so it's so tiny. So the point that Biella is making is that even though from where the spiral starts, right, to where it's currently at, this will continue growing forever. It doesn't actually grow at the same rate it does when the spiral is big. Yeah, because those bigger spirals take up more space. Yeah? So if you were literally to take a rope and lay it in a spiral, but a rope that gets thinner and thinner and thinner all the time, right? And you make the spiral, right? And you keep going with this thinness forever. You're gonna make a physical spiral, right? Laying the rope, but it will have a specific height. And even though it's actually going to continue forever, you won't notice that it's continuing forever. So the effect is that we can get to experience that infinity point of self-perception that you're immediately able to be aware fully of yourself. We can experience that effect within our lifetimes, even though it's going to carry on into infinity, right? Because to get from the large to the small, you can get there very quick. And after that, it doesn't matter, right? It's so tiny, it's irrelevant. And that's a huge point of understanding, right? And it changes everything because now we also realize that even though learning is infinite, right, that we don't need to learn everything in order to get a profound effect out of it. We just have to get to that point where the learning starts to feed back on itself and it's kind of instantaneous, right? Because instantaneous in our perception, right, and not in a mathematical sense, but if it's 0.001 of a second or 0.000001 of a second, we cannot perceive that difference. It makes no difference in actuality. It's like when we're talking right now, right? There's a slight delay, right, between me talking to you and me talking to Beena, but it's so fractionally different we don't notice it, right? Because we can't comprehend such small fractions, right? So this is the same when it comes to learning. And it's very, very important to understand so that we don't get discouraged by the infinity of learning, particularly when we start to abstract things, right? After a while, we start off with data and information. And of course, yes, that can carry on for infinity. But because we are abstracting it, right? We abstract more and more and more and more. And when you make an abstract pyramid of information, right? You've got all the points at the bottom, and then they go, and then there's less at the top, with the abstract categories, and you categorize those categories, and then there's less again, and eventually you get to one concept like appropriateness, right? So there's a limit to it. And the same thing with this awareness, right? It's the spiral point here. It's very, very important to understand, because otherwise we can get a bit disheartened by the infinity of knowing. No, know that each time you make the circle, the cycle, which is not a circle, it's a spiral. If it is a spiral, in other words, if there is actual really learning and growth, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And because it gets tighter, you're able to see the whole of your journey, your learning journey, right? You're able to see it all immediately. Like I think in some of the cycles that you've been sharing with me, you're still not seeing it all in that immediate, instantaneous way. You have to kind of go through the steps. It's still in a bigger part, right? Now, at other times, it spirals a bit quicker. But you see the logic that I'm getting to this, Jessica, that we don't lose heart with the learning, because at first you don't even realize it's a spiral, because it's such a big, long circle. You can't see that it's a spiral, but it is. And trust in that, trust in that, trust in that it is a spiral, and it is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and then things will start to fall into place quicker and quicker and quicker, and the repeats will go faster, and you won't have to go through each step, because you can see the whole. Oh, this is that same story again. Okay, I can just kind of skip to the end. Well, I'm not skipping, but I'm grokking it, right? GROK it's from a Heinlein science fiction story, by the way. He made up this word and it kind of stuck, but it means to comprehend the whole. Yeah. And initially, when we're dealing with problems like relationship problems, we don't see the whole. We go through each little step, but the more you repeat them, eventually you see the whole of it, and then you can kind of grab it all at once, and you don't have to repeat all those little steps, right? I'm explaining the same thing over and over in many different ways, because it's a super powerful point. It's a huge big deal, this spiral fable, which is why it's one of the founding myths of the new nobility. Very simple story, but it's one of the origin myths of the new nobility, right? Like the origin story. It's a very big deal to them. Their culture, their society, their philosophy, it's instrumental and foundational to all of it, right? Make sense, Jessica?
Yes, it does very much so.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, it's a very cool point. Very, very cool point. All right. I
It
think
is.
on this point, yeah, please comment and share. But I think I want to stop here. Right. We can discuss all, but just to carry on tomorrow from this point, right? This is just this point. The spiral fable is so huge. So and also it goes right, that quote that I have, which says, I know I am nothing compared to the universe. However, I am something compared to nothing. It goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what, Jessica? Uh, I'm going to add that quote in as the start of this. Well, the spiral fable, it's a standalone post, and at some point it's going to be in the book of myths, tales, and fables of the new nobility, right? Because that's where she's quoting from. But I want to have this as an opening quote there, right? This quote, right?
Yes.
You with me? It will be like each chapter has that opening quote. which gives that overview connectivity, that moreness to say, oh, it's a bit more here. And so the Spiral Fable, when you connect it to that quote, is very powerful. Yes. Okay. So how did that go again? I can look it up in my quote file, but sometimes the words are in different orders. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so see how this happens, Jessica. When you write out quotes, the stuff gets added. Yeah. See, I said I am
Mhm.
nothing compared to the universe, but I'm adding in here just for poetic quotiness. You see, I have to have quotes have uh, when it's a good quote, it has a quotiness to it. There's a quote quality to it, right? And in Way of Impeccability, there's actually a whole session on learning to quote the self, right? Or it's called quoting the self. We didn't get there ever, but it's there, and we'll get there at some point. But it's very powerful stuff. I am nothing compared to the something of the universe. However, I am something. I leave out the E there. Yes. I am something compared to nothing. See, so it just gives that double resonance, that poeticness, that epistrophiness of something and something, right? It just reads a little nicer. I am nothing compared to the something of the universe. However, I am something compared to nothing. I think a comma here, dramatic emphasis. Okay, so this is, I'll just attribute it to Tim. Who the hell is Tim? Yeah, well, it's really the young man, right?
Yes.
Hey.
Actually, I think that it's a really good placement too as a quote, just
Yeah,
because at the beginning, just because it really kind of emphasizes, or not kind of, it really does emphasize what the rest of the story is going to be about.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And so that really catches the eye, and you're like, oh, what's this about? And then you
yeah,
keep going on with it.
yeah. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, it's a great quote. And now it also brings the Spiral Fable. It connects it more potently to personal growth, right? Right. And
Yes.
this quote is not in the original chapter where she's telling it to Camelius, right? It now is just in the standalone post. And so I guess when it goes into myths, tales, and fables of the new nobility, Biella's, the sort of where she looks at the river and that will be taken out. It'll just be the pure fable itself and the quote. So very cool, very cool. I like that. I like that. I like updating things. This to me is a very powerful point. And the A plus philosophy, or the philosophy of appropriateness, it's living, it's ongoing. It changes all the time. Same like Way of Impeccability. I keep adjusting and amending it, which to me is absolutely essential. If you do not have a living philosophy, a living system, a living framework that's continually changing and adapting as appropriate, then you just get stuck. And we can just look at religions, right? Oh, you can't change the scripture. This is unthinkable. Dude, your stuff is not appropriate anymore. Yeah,
Well, exactly, because what it may be appropriate in your life at the time is
exactly.
not always going to be appropriate in your life in the
Exactly.
future.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, just slavery in the Old Testament, it's just like taken for granted. And the casual misogyny, same thing, it's taken for granted. Yeah. Everything's he. There's no mention of she. It's like women don't exist. Like, hello. And this continues up until even today, still that casual misogyny. They don't
Yep.
even realize they're being misogynist and just say he. And it's applied by women as well. Not misandry, misogyny, right? They buy into it as well. They also say he as a default. You're doing the same thing. Right? So we have to be very
Yep.
careful to pay attention. So yeah, big deal with all of this stuff. Very, very big deal. All right, very cool, Jessica. Any more comments on the story so far? Well, it was just a short little bit, but yeah, yeah.
Even though it doesn't matter the length of it to me,
Mm.
I
Ah,
think, personally, what matters to me the most is the message that is within the story. And I had related so much to, Biella, to, Bueno, all of them, and their different aspects of, their understandings and, their unawarenesses, and knowing that, okay, you're aware of that you already have the answer. And it takes a little bit more of that self-understanding to, be confident in your own. Because I have gone back and forth multiple times on a
yeah,
specific answer. I'm like, but
yeah,
why am I is it second guessing yourself? And,
exactly,
but it's like, well, I've never done this way before. Well, just because you never done it that way before doesn't mean it can't be possible.
exactly. And we're gonna see this from Boynal. He really is stuck in a loop. He says the same stuff in different ways, but it allows this. I love this chapter because we are what you just said. We see Boynal doing right, and we see it stretched out, and we see the comments, and we get a very clear awareness of it. And for me personally, I'm like, holy moly, Boynal, come on, man. You want to give him a metaphorical smack a little bit there just to wake him up a little bit, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, dude, come on. But as from a reader point of view, right? Like you now, right? We hearing you seeing your own story, kind of a little bit exaggerated in Boynal in the abstract, right? He's saying the same stuff and he's kind of not getting it and he's looping a bit, right? But when you are inside your own loop, you don't quite see it so clearly. But when you see somebody else's loop, you see it really clearly. And also because Biella and the group are looking to share resolution and understanding and awareness, we can pull tools of understanding and tools of application, tools of change from this entire interaction. And also, it shows the exquisite patience and tolerance and caring and kindness and consideration of the new nobility, right? Because you're going to see this, it goes on for a while with Boynal, and it's like, seriously? You're giving this so much attention, but that's how they are. That's how they are. So I love this. It's really cool to see, right? And especially like you were saying, from your point of view, of where you've gone through the same thing, to see it like this externally and with commentary and you commenting on it, it gives you nice perspective on yourself, right? Which makes it easier to deal with those when they come around in future, right? It's practice, capital P practice, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, just because I'm at the stage where I'm now learning more about myself.
Yes.
I, and about how much trouble, like before I didn't see where, while I was doing it, where my moreness was getting me into trouble.
Yeah.
And now I'm more conscious of it than anything else, or at any point that I've ever been conscious of my moreness and how it can go the opposite way for me, where
Yes.
I'm thinking it's going one way, but I'm actually lying to myself, and I'm going one way, another way with it, which ends up
Yeah.
with me being used, which ends up me being misunderstood, and things like that. And
Exactly.
also, I'm not getting the growth that I want, that I require to keep moving forward in my
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
so I'm learning more and more about myself, and about
Wonderful.
like how I have
Yeah.
obtained
Yeah.
false beliefs, and how these false beliefs are affecting my life
Yeah.
and myself. And so, like, and one thing that it really kind of hit home, because I was talking to CJ, and he and I had
Oh,
a good conversation. He was talking about how he you know, he used to never be afraid of anything. Like he was never afraid of, which is true. The child knew no danger. And then all of a sudden he just became very afraid of doing things or having that lack of confidence. And, you know, I told him, I was
Yeah.
like, you know, that's for you to figure out where that lack of confidence started.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Exactly.
so,
Exactly. Yeah.
but doing a lot of work on yourself and facing, like, I always
Yeah.
tell him, like, so your fears are false stories that your brain tells you
Yeah.
from, you know,
Yeah.
like the old belief systems and things like that. They are false beliefs that your brain likes to tell you. And said, you know, just stop believing those. Like you have to work on stopping, learning how to stop. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I can help give you the tools, or I can share with you the tools that you work with multiple people. But I said, ultimately, in the end, it's up to you what tools you want to use to help yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those, and that kind of was like also at the same time, I've learned that when I give people, you know, that kind of like talk to them in those ways, I also am talking to myself in that matter, you know, and reason being is because it's also stuff that I need to hear out loud. That's so much easier to tell somebody else so I can hear it out loud at the same time instead of feeling awkward and telling it to myself out loud.
Yeah. It's very important, this sharing and communicating. I hope you are around tomorrow when we continue reading through this, because I'm keen for you to get a feel of the entire conversation that Boynal shares, and to look at it from different angles. And I'll mention a few things which I don't think it comes up in the comments, but it will be very helpful from. Basically, this chapter is one giant, big capital H hearing session, right? And when we look at it that way, and also not only look at it from how Biella and the group, are doing the hearing, but when we look at it from inside of Boynal and say, what could I do if I were stuck like a Boynal to not be stuck like a Boynal? And what might be keeping him stuck? Right? When we ask those questions, we get some very cool answers. So this is very, very potent and very powerful and very pertinent in this. So I hope you make it tomorrow as well, Jessica. That'd be very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Most definitely. And I don't think I have anything going on tomorrow, so
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be able
Brilliant.
to join in.
Brilliant. All right, all right, all right. So I do need to go right now, and we'll carry on tomorrow. But it's a good pause point anyway. It's very cool.
Absolutely.
So fantastic, fantastic. I'm so pleased you came. This is just awesome. That's really cool.
Thank
All
you.
right, all right. We'll see you tomorrow. And Beena had to go. She had to arrange stuff, so you had to talk to somebody specific that she couldn't delay. That's why she had to leave. So I'm glad you're here.
No
It's all
problem.
worked out just marvelous. This is very pertinent. You came at the right time. This whole chapter is, it's your timing isn't just random. There's a moreness to it. You connected at a very pertinent and appropriate point, right? That's why I'm keen to make sure you come back tomorrow. Very powerful. Very powerful. All right. All right. On that note, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye, Norma. Bye bye, Beena. Bye bye, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow. So end meeting for all.